SITREP World Briefing for July 1st, 2026. U.S. envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner arrived in Qatar as Washington sought to revive diplomacy over the Iran war, with Qatari officials saying the pair would meet mediators on all regional issues. The talks were centered in Doha, Qatar, where the government publicly reaffirmed its support for mediation. The American envoys were not expected to meet Iranian representatives during this round. Tehran confirmed that it had sent its own delegation to Doha this week, but Iranian officials denied agreeing to meet U.S. counterparts at any level. That denial clarified that the current effort involves mediated contacts rather than face-to-face negotiations, with Qatar positioned between the two governments. Doha has often hosted sensitive regional diplomacy because it maintains channels with actors that do not speak openly to one another. The renewed push in Doha showed how the regional crisis has widened beyond the battlefield and into a contest over who can still broker a political off-ramp. For the Trump administration, dispatching Witkoff and Kushner signaled that Washington wanted to test indirect channels without committing to a formal public negotiation. The immediate stakes include whether mediators can reduce escalation, define terms for further contact, and create enough trust for broader discussions. U.S. President Donald Trump disclosed more than $1 billion in cryptocurrency-related income for 2025, according to his annual financial filing released in Washington. The filing showed that the president made more than $1.2 billion from the Trump family's crypto activities during his first year back in office. The disclosure, filed through the U.S. Office of Government Ethics, pointed to a broad portfolio of crypto-linked ventures and royalties that outpaced Trump's income from real estate and branded merchandise. The scale of the earnings is politically significant because Trump returned to the White House after years in which digital currencies moved from a fringe financial product into a major arena for campaign donors, retail investors, and regulatory battles in Washington. Ofgem's new household energy price cap took effect across the United Kingdom on July 1st, raising the typical annual bill by 13% for customers on standard variable tariffs. The regulator's cap does not limit a household's total bill, but instead sets a maximum unit rate and standing charge, meaning families that use more gas and electricity will pay more than the published typical figure. The change lands in the middle of summer, when usage is often lower, but it will still feed directly into household budgeting ahead of the higher-demand autumn and winter months. The increase has prompted a practical push for households to submit up-to-date meter readings so suppliers bill energy use accurately before the new higher rates are applied. That matters especially for homes without smart meters, because an estimate taken after July 1st could assign some cap rise consumption to the more expensive period. In Britain's retail energy market, the price cap became a central consumer protection after the 2021-2022 energy crisis exposed millions of households to wholesale gas shocks, and changes to the cap are closely watched because they influence inflation, disposable income, and the pressure on government support schemes. For consumers, the immediate effect is less about a single bill arriving on July 1st than about a higher baseline for every unit of energy used under capped tariffs over the coming quarter. That means the rise will be felt unevenly. Low-usage homes may see a smaller cash increase, while larger households, poorly insulated properties, and people who rely heavily on electricity or gas for heating will face steeper costs. The cap remains one of the most important levers in the United Kingdom's domestic energy system because it shapes what millions of customers pay by default, even as policymakers continue to encourage switching, efficiency upgrades, and more accurate smart meter-based billing. European scientists said on Wednesday that the world's oceans recorded their hottest June ever measured, marking another climate milestone as a new El Niño pattern takes hold in the tropical Pacific. The assessment pointed to a combination of naturally recurring El Niño warming and long-term human-driven climate change, a pairing that scientists warned could drive sea surface temperatures even higher in the coming months. Because oceans absorb most of the excess heat trapped by greenhouse gases, unusually warm seas matter far beyond shipping lanes and coastlines, influencing rainfall, storm intensity, coral reef health, and marine food chains across multiple regions. The June record is significant because El Niño often adds a short-term burst of global heat on top of the steady warming trend caused by fossil fuel emissions, deforestation, and other human activity. When ocean temperatures rise, the effects can spread from the Pacific into weather systems worldwide, raising the risk of heavier rainfall in some places, drought in others, and additional pressure on fisheries and coastal ecosystems already strained by marine heat waves. Scientists have been closely watching sea temperatures since successive records in recent years, and the latest June reading suggests that the oceanic baseline from which future heat extremes develop is continuing to climb. The warning from European researchers also highlights the ocean's central role in the climate system. Warmer water expands and contributes to sea level rise, while elevated marine temperatures can reduce the ocean's ability to buffer heat in ways that have historically moderated the pace of atmospheric warming. For governments, the private sector, and public health agencies, hotter seas can translate into more expensive adaptation needs, from protecting ports and power infrastructure to preparing for heat, flooding, and food supply disruptions on land. With El Niño still developing, the latest record is likely to increase scrutiny of both near-term disaster planning and longer-term emissions policy. The U.S. Supreme Court struck down President Donald Trump's executive order restricting birthright citizenship, preserving the long-standing rule that children born in the United States are citizens regardless of their parents' immigration status. At the center of the dispute was the meaning of the 14th Amendment, which says that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. By rejecting Trump's order, the justices left intact one of the most consequential constitutional protections in American public life, one that has shaped immigration, civil rights, and the legal status of millions of families for generations. The ruling also carried broader political weight because it came at the end of a Supreme Court term that otherwise gave Trump several important wins. In that context, the birthright citizenship case stood out as one of the clearest limits the court imposed on the president's agenda. Sources and the full written briefing are available at sitrepbrief.com.